Welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier, President of Action for Life, and this is Father Michael Orsi. Father.
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great.
All right.
I'm doing great. You know, last week we were talking about immigration. One of the things that we didn't touch on was the explosion of asylum claims that are driving this whole thing. Mm-hmm. What everyone knows if they're paying attention to the media at all, is that people are getting coached via their cell phone, their smartphone, whether it's on Instagram or it doesn't matter. So they know exactly what to say when they cross the border. Mm-hmm. And when they say the right thing, they can't be deported.
Right.
They're seeking asylum. Let me give you a statistic. In 2013, there were 76,000 applications for asylum. Fast forward 10 years to 2023, and the number is...
That can't be right.
Fast forward to 2023, and that number has increased more than tenfold.
Okay, let's talk about how it has increased and why it's increased. First of all, bringing undocumented aliens, illegal aliens, newcomers into the country is profitable. Okay?
Yeah.
It's profitable to those who are involved in, the coyotes. The term we use is coyotes. They're also people who are well-versed in how to manipulate the system. Mm. So a lot of these people that are coming in to the country, they contract with a cartel. We talk about a cartel. They're human traffickers. They're basically human traffickers. And these people, they might be saving all their lives to just get here.
Yeah.
You know, they try to get the money together, and that way they can engage a coyote, and the coyote is going to give them a price. This is what it's going to cost you to get into the United States. And like any other good business, we have a very good record of people getting into this country, of getting into the U.S. So they pay them the money. And sometimes, let me tell you this, folks, they might not have the money, up front, but once they get here, they are actually indentured servants, because they are required then by the coyote and by their minions that have already infiltrated our society to work and then to pay back what they owe. So they might be making a salary, but they're not keeping the whole salary. They're not keeping most of it, because they owe that to the coyote, which is like it's a business. It's a shame. It's a business that deals in human beings. So they pay these people off either up front or later on. And then the coyote says, well, there are certain things that you have to know. Well, first of all, let me tell you this. They're going to make sure that they get them here, in a safe and an orderly way. If you watch, the news reports on them coming over, you'll see they're coming in single, in an organized way. They're not jumping just all over the place. They're coming in together in caravans, if you will. They are clothed. They're not falling down because they are thirsty or hungry. They're being fed and cared for along the way. All right, that's all part of the fee that they're paying to get here. So what happens once they're able to deliver them over the border, they tell them what they have to say in order to stay here, too. So we see a lot of them, they have cell phones. And the cell phones are programmed. This is what you say. And you say, there's a couple of phrases that, right away, they will enable somebody to be admitted to the United States because it's a humanitarian purpose. I'm scared. I'm being persecuted in my own country.
I'm being threatened.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, okay, we better let you in. Now, there's not even very good record keeping about who's being let in. We talked about that before. But they will process them through, and then give them a date. You have to return in 10 years in order for you to.
You're exaggerating, but it's oftentimes 3, 4, 5
Right,
years.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a business. They're doing business with human beings, human lives, and these people are coming in here, as I said, oftentimes not because they paid the coyote everything, but because they are indebted. There's a mortgage on them, their lives, their families, and they have to pay it back because you have thugs in this country that are doing the collecting for the coyotes.
By the way, the coyotes, a lot of them are former drug dealers who realize that there's virtually no penalty for human trafficking. And so rather than try to smuggle drugs across, if you smuggle human beings, nobody pays any attention to you.
Sure.
It's amazing.
Sure. And you're dealing with basically a lot of very desperate people willing to risk everything just to get into the United States. It's very complimentary to the United States that people want to come here. I don't think there's any big lineups, trying to get into China or Russia or North Korea. So in a sense, it's rather flattering. However, you have to be careful, or else you're going to end up, like China or Russia or North Korea.
A couple of contrasts. One of them is the UK, where their immigration laws are actually more lax than ours. And as anyone who reads or pays attention to the media knows, UK has a serious problem with immigration. We don't see it as often, but the BBC News channel is on your cable system, and if you watch it a couple of times, undoubtedly that story will come up. Conversely, Australia has really strict immigration laws. Now, I don't think as strict as Japan, for example, but with Australia, they'll just turn you around and send you back.
That's right. That's nothing new for them.
I know.
That's nothing. The Japanese, certainly, President Biden said one day they're xenophobic. Oh, you can't say that. The Japanese are insulted. Well, it's not that easy to get into Japanese society. They have a very, very strong national identity and a very, very culturally, they're not just opening their doors for everybody to come in there. So they are, in a sense, xenophobic. But the Australians, they've always been strict. Which, by the way, is a little bit ironic, considering that the country was founded by criminals who were deported to there. Right. But yeah. Well, they did very well there. As a matter of fact, they did very well. But they've always been strict on immigration because they wanted a certain kind of a person that they needed to develop their country. So I can remember a lot of Italians ended up going to Australia. We had stricter immigration laws here too. They were quotas for the Southern Europeans, and therefore they couldn't get into this country. So they went to Australia, they went to Argentina. Now, with Australia, they would say they needed certain trades. And they'd let them in and say, I'm a bricklayer. We need construction people here in this country. And so they would emigrate to Australia, and Australia would give them money for the supplies that they needed to get their business going, which, it worked out. And some of them have, many of them have done very, very, very well. I mean, a number of years ago, I'll tell you a true story, BC. I mean, this is a true story. I was in Europe a number of years ago, before I was ordained a priest, and I met a lovely girl over there. And her name was Colomba. It means little pigeon in Italian.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. The little pigeon was adorable. And she told me that her father gave her this trip to Europe as a graduation present. And she began to tell me the story about her father was an Italian immigrant and went to Australia and went there as a bricklayer, and then began his own construction company, and he's a very, very wealthy man today.
Wow.
So, they do have rules and regulations for the good of the country.
Well, here's another small piece of the immigration solution in America. We don't have enough tradespeople, right?
Right.
And many of these people who are coming across the border have trades.
Yeah.
They were in their country an electrician or a bricklayer or whatever. That would be somebody I'd put at the head of the line.
Yeah.
We need plumbers? Great. You're a plumber? Come here. I'm going to give you a work permit.
Hey, look, BC, we know from down here, folks, I'm always speaking to you the truth. We have many, many people here that are illegal, but they do the work in our homes and in our country clubs and all of our civic buildings. They're the electricians, they're the plumbers, they're the construction workers. If we didn't have them here in Florida, let's face it, folks, we would be doomed.
Well, we couldn't go to a restaurant because nobody would wash the dishes. We would be, the landscaping would be a nightmare.
Right.
All right? I mean, truly, many of these people serve a very valuable
That's why
function.
they have to be legalized. You have to legalize them.
And then they'll pay taxes.
Yeah.
Which would help our Social Security situation,
It sure would. And, it must be horrible. I often think about this. Suppose you are here, illegally. Are you always worried that somebody's going to knock at your door and say, hello, we're...
immigration.
Yeah, immigration.
Take you home.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to live that way. My heart would be beating all the time.
Oh, boy. Yeah. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Glenn Beck is coming to Naples on October 30th. This is your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get up close and personal with renowned author, broadcaster, and political commentator Glenn Beck. Enjoy elegance, education, and enlightenment as Glenn Beck and Father Michael Orsi engage in a highly anticipated dialogue on stage at the beautiful Naples Grand Beach Resort. Get tickets today with an early bird discount at actionforlife.org/events. Welcome back to a conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, here's an irony for you. We have all these people coming across the border illegally. You have to ask yourself, how many of them would choose to come legally if they could? They wouldn't have to pay a coyote, it's safer, etc., right? The irony is that it is so difficult to come to America legally that these people choose the most expedient means, which is to come illegally.
Yeah, certainly the immigration laws need to be changed. We have to change the immigration laws to make it easier for people to come here legally. However, and I say this, however, it's not, an open door policy, come one, come all. I think like these other countries we mentioned, like Australia, even like Japan, that we have to say, well, there are going to be certain quotas from different countries, different people with different job skills. If we need a job skill, let's take a look at you and let you into the country. I don't think we just afford to just leave a door open and say, here comes everybody. What do we do with you once you get here? I mean, you have to be able, I think, to be able to say, I have a trade, I have a skill, I can make a living. Or, even with young people, if they're young enough that they can become good American citizens, I think that they have to be given consideration too. Of course, you're going to have the problem of people saying, well, why do you allow people from just say Africa to come, and you don't allow people from China to come? And I think you have to begin to say, how do we get a balance here of not just race, but we have to get a balance here of people that are able to support themselves. We used to have in this country too, you had to have a sponsor here.
Right, as Canada did for many years.
Yeah, you had to have a sponsor. Okay, this is my cousin Louis, and Louis is going to be living with me once he comes here. I'll take responsibility for him. He can live with me until he gets on his feet. And that's a pretty good thing. You have to have somebody here that's going to let you.
And he can't collect welfare.
Right.
He's your responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think when we begin to look at things like that, I see we have more of a stability. You're going to be. I think you try to be more behaved and try to get a job right away if you are depending on cousin Louis to take care of you until you get yourself together.
Because your cousin's going to put the heat on you.
Right.
Say, let's go. You're here now. Make something happen.
Right. Yeah. And, there used to be something called, we had individual people coming in through a quota. And then under, I forget what president was, but it was Teddy Kennedy. It was this Family Reunification Act, they called it. And what happened then, it actually opened up the floodgates, family reunification, because you can say, well, that's my cousin Louis over there, but Louis has a lot of cousins coming in from, wherever. Louis has, his cousin Nino, and he has his cousin Juliana, and he has his great nephew Bajigaloop coming in. So it just exploded. Everybody related to everybody.
Right. It started out, I think, with good intentions, which was someone comes here, assimilates themselves, establishes some stability, and then brings, the spouse and the kids over.
Exactly.
But then somehow, like so many things, lawyers got involved is what happened. I blame everything on attorneys. Pretty soon it was cousins, and just now that's gummed up the works.
Yes.
And that's, again, why people are entering illegally, because the legal system is so...
It's broken. It's broken. But, folks, so we have this election coming up over here, and I think we have to look just a lot deeper than simply saying, build a wall. I mean, that might be part of the solution. But, okay, what are we going to do about immigration in this country? We have to have a plan.
That was one of the things that when Trump ran the first time, right, there was a knock against him. Is that, this guy, he's against immigration. And, well, maybe he was prescient in his views, because we have a crisis on our hands.
We do. We have a crisis on our hands, and we have to solve it, or else it's going to destroy the country.
Yeah. We've talked about, identity, cultural identity.
Well, we talked about crime. If you're in this country and you have no other way to support yourself, you're going to rob somebody. You might even kill somebody if you're here and nobody ever took notice that you have a mental problem and you become a dangerous person. What do we have here? You remember the stories, of course, about even Ellis Island. Bringing people in and giving them like a test once they arrived at Ellis Island.
And some of them got sent back.
Yeah. And I think if you go there today, I was there many years ago, but they had a staircase. And if you couldn't make it up the staircase, you were sent back because that said you had some kind of a lung problem or a heart problem.
Yep. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, folks. Over the weeks, you have become more and more familiar with our program, Conversations with Father Orsi. I know that you are enjoying the programs because you tell me that you do. I want you to be sure that you should never worry about missing an episode, because you can go to actionforlife.org and catch all of the episodes that we have produced over the last year. Now, also, extra added bonus, you can watch my homilies, my weekly homilies about the Sunday readings. That's also on actionforlife.org. Lastly, both of these adventures, conversations and the homilies, they cost money. And I'm going to have to ask you if you can help us out, because so many of you tell me how much you enjoy the program. Some people tell me our Sunday wouldn't be the same. We record the program, we watch them during the week. This is an expensive enterprise, and we think it's an important way to get out the gospel message and to talk about those issues of the day that are important to us as Christians. So please go to your website, actionforlife.org. There is a button you can click for donations, and please be generous to us to keep this show on the air. Your Sundays will not be the same without it.
Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, before the break, we were talking about Ellis Island, and not everybody was allowed to enter because of various issues.
Right.
A lot of mental health issues today, and we have no way of screening these people that are just streaming across our border.
Yeah.
And mental health in and of itself is a real problem. I think, by the way, we're getting a little off topic, but someone said, and you'll know who, I think, but I don't remember. Anyway, somebody said that the greatest therapy in the world is Christianity, right? That if people went back to church, a lot of their mental issues disappear or at least dissipate. Was that Bishop Robert Barron?
May have been Robert Barron. I think Bishop Sheen may have touched on that too. He said, the greatest psychiatrist in the whole world is the Bible.
I guess you're right. That's the quote I was thinking.
Yeah. He said, that if people, had the Bible, a lot of their psychological issues could be worked on and solved. The problem with that is in all due respect to Bishop Sheen, I think he should be a saint immediately. You do have people who have very, very serious psychiatric problems that all the Bible in the world is not going to cure them. So if you have somebody that's suffering from
schizophrenia,
bipolar, OCD, serious cases of OCD, paranoia, you need some very, very serious medical attention and drug therapy.
But for those people that are just experiencing a certain level of anxiety, where doctors say, well, here, just have some Xanax and that'll fix it. My guess is if they spend some time at church, worshiping God and, listening to, reading and listening to scripture, etc., that might address some of those issues.
Yeah, I certainly believe that that is true. I think if a person, reads the Bible, goes to church, a lot of the anxiety that they have may lessen and enable them to experience a little bit more peace and function more normally at the workplace or at home. As I said, the other problem, of course, is people with serious mental problems. And we do have a lot of the immigrants coming into this country who have not been vetted, and they're coming in with some very, very serious mental problems. We've seen that, unfortunately, play out in different cities where they're criminals. And a lot of the criminals are sociopathic. We had in New York City, it was terrible, that these teenage young men just decided to beat up a police officer. What makes somebody do that and then be proud of it? I think that there is a serious mental problem there. And these people, before they come into a country, they should be vetted for that, because it's dangerous to the citizens of this country. And then, of course, we're going to be also responsible for paying for their care, whether it's rehabilitation, incarceration, psychiatric institution.
Father, the sad thing about that particular circumstance, and many like it, if we give cops guns for a reason, they should have shot all those guys in the head and gotten it over with. But that would be the end of the world for the cop that was getting beat up.
Oh, sure.
The cop would have ended up going to jail, perhaps, or certainly being prosecuted.
Right.
Everything is upside down in America these days. It used to be that you don't mess around with someone with a badge and a gun.
Yeah. Well, we have to be careful, because the law has always said that you can only react insofar as there is a great danger.
Credible threat.
Yeah. Credible threat. Now, suppose they took out.
You're getting beat up. That's pretty credible.
Suppose they took out a gun. It's a different story. Take out a gun or a knife, and the cop says, "My life is in jeopardy here."
Okay.
Then you can use it. Okay, credible threat for my life. Now, what about what happened to them? I think there are ways that could have been controlled, and perhaps if the cop was allowed to carry a club They used to carry, we call it a billy club. And, they're coming at me, and I'm going to take you touch me, and I'm going to whack you. I think that may have prevented a lot of that horrible scene of the beating of a police officer. But these days, you can't even talk about a club. I think they have rubber clubs now, too. But you can't even talk about that, or else it's considered to be abuse.
Back in the day,
yeah,
the cops had a little short, I forgot what they call it now. Anyway, it had a spring.
Yeah.
And it had a piece of lead, and it was encased by leather. I can't remember the word. Anyway, cops weren't supposed to carry them, but it was a very common thing. Mm-hmm. And if they had a problem, a couple of whacks with that thing brought the perp to his senses.
Yeah. I think that those guys who were beating up the officer in New York, I think had they seen a club, I think they might have thought twice. When this poor officer, he was at their mercy, they ganged up on him.
Yeah.
Whoever heard of such a thing, attacking a police officer for nothing? Where did they come from? Some South American country they came from. And then they brought them to a court in New York, and they were let out.
Yeah. Yeah, Alvin Bragg.
Yeah.
He's busy prosecuting Trump. In the meantime, he's letting these thugs wander around the city.
Right.
And one of them, I don't know if it was in that gang or somebody else, was a multiple time offender.
And they got into this country. They got in. Look, folks, let me tell you something. Have respect for the law.
Yes.
And have respect for police officers. These are some of the finest human beings I have ever met. I work with them. I know them. They are family people. They are people who love this country. Don't ever let an officer be abused. And if you see an officer, on the street, go over and shake his or her hand and say, thank you for what you're doing for our community. Because, without them, we'd be in chaos and all of our lives would be forfeit. So thank the police officers for everything that they do for us, and never let it ever be tolerated that people can just abuse them and think that they can get away with it. They can't get away with it.
Thanks for joining us. You're absolutely right, Father.
Thank you. I'm always right.
And thank you to every law enforcement person out there who keeps us safe. It's the end of another episode. Thanks for being with us. We hope to see you again next week, same time, same place. I'm BC Cloutier. Have a great week, and God bless.